The clock on Marcus Johnson's computer screen showed 9:47 p.m. Most of the Harrison Financial Group building was empty now, with only the security lights glowing in the dark hallways. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes and stretched his arms above his head. He had been fixing computers and updating software systems since 7 in the morning, but there was still more work to do. At 24 years old, Marcus was one of the youngest IT support workers at the company. He liked his job even, though it was not glamorous. Every day he helped people with their computer problems, installed new programs, and made sure all the systems worked properly. The pay was decent, and it helped him support his mother and younger sister back home in Detroit. Marcus was about to shut down his computer when he heard voices coming from down the hall. This was strange because most employees left by 6 o'clock. He listened carefully and heard someone talking in a worried voice. The sound was coming from the executive floor, which was 2 levels above where Marcus normally worked. He decided to investigate. Maybe someone needed help with their computer and the security guard had called for IT support. Marcus gathered his tools and took the elevator up to the executive floor. As the doors opened, he saw expensive paintings on the walls and thick carpets on the floor. This was where the company's top managers worked, and Marcus had only been here a few times before. The worried voice was getting louder now. Marcus followed the sound and found himself standing outside a large office with glass walls. Inside, he could see a man in an expensive suit looking through papers on his desk. The man had gray hair and looked to be in his 50s. He was moving frantically, opening drawers and checking file cabinets. Marcus recognized him immediately. It was Richard Harrison, the CEO of the entire company. Marcus had only seen him from far away during company meetings, and he never imagined he would meet him face to face. Richard looked up and saw Marcus standing in the doorway. For a moment, both men just stared at each other. Marcus felt nervous. What was he supposed to say to the most important person in the company? "I'm sorry, sir," Marcus said quietly. "I heard voices and thought someone might need help with their computer." Richard's face showed relief. "Actually, I do need help," he said. "Are you from IT?" "Yes, sir. I'm Marcus Johnson. I work in technical support." Richard stood up and walked over to Marcus. "Marcus, I'm in serious trouble. I have important files on my computer that I need for a board meeting on Monday morning, but somehow they've disappeared. I've been looking for them for hours." Marcus could see the worry in Richard's eyes. The CEO of a major company was asking him for help. This felt like a dream. "Can you show me your computer, sir?" Marcus asked. Richard led him to a large desk with an expensive computer setup. The screen was still on, showing several open folders and documents. Marcus sat down in the leather chair and began to examine the system. "When did you last see these files?" Marcus asked as he clicked through different folders. "This morning," Richard replied. "I was reviewing them before lunch and now they're gone. I've checked everywhere, but it's like they vanished." Marcus began running diagnostic programs to check the computer's memory and storage. He noticed something unusual in the system logs. There were entries showing that files had been moved but not deleted. "Sir, I don't think your files were erased," Marcus said. "It looks like they might have been moved to a different location." "But I didn't move them," Richard said. "I'm not even sure how to do that." Marcus continued his investigation. He found traces of unusual activity in the network logs. Someone or something had accessed Richard's computer remotely and moved the files to a hidden encrypted folder. This was not normal computer behavior. "Mr. Harrison, I think your computer might have been attacked by hackers," Marcus explained. "They didn't steal your files, but they hid them in a way that would make them hard to find." Richard's face went pale. "Can you get them back?" "I think so, but it might take some time," Marcus said. "I'll need to break through the encryption and trace where the files were moved." Richard looked at his watch. It was already past 10 o'clock. "Marcus, these files contain information about a major business deal. If I don't have them for Monday's meeting, my company could lose millions of dollars." Marcus understood the seriousness of the situation. He had never worked on something this important before, but he knew he had the skills to solve the problem. "I'll stay here all night if I have to," Marcus said. "I won't give up until I find your files." Richard smiled for the first time that evening. "Thank you, Marcus. I really appreciate this. For the next 4 hours, Marcus worked steadily on Richard's Yao computer. He used advanced software tools to trace the hidden files and slowly began to unlock the encrypted folder. Richard stayed with him, sometimes bringing coffee or asking questions about what Marcus was doing. As they worked together, Marcus learned that Richard had started the company 25 years ago with just a small office and big dreams. He had built it into one of the most successful financial firms in the city through hard work and smart decisions. I've always believed that the best ideas come from unexpected places, Richard told Marcus as they waited for a program to finish running. Some of my biggest successes came from listening to employees who others might have ignored. At 2:30 in the morning, Marcus finally broke through the last layer of encryption. The missing files appeared on the screen completely intact. Richard's merger documents, financial reports, and presentation materials were all there. But Marcus didn't stop there. He spent another hour analyzing how the attack had happened and fixing the security weakness that had allowed the hackers to get in. He installed new protection software and changed several passwords to make sure the problem wouldn't happen again. When they were finished, Richard shook Marcus's hand firmly. "You've saved my company tonight, Marcus. I won't forget this." Marcus packed up his tools, feeling proud but also tired. He had never worked on such an important project before. As he rode the elevator back down to his floor, he thought about what had just happened. He had helped the CEO of his company solve a major problem. It felt good to know that his skills had made a real difference. Marcus gathered his things and headed home, thinking this would be an interesting story to tell his friends. He had no idea that this night would change his entire life. Marcus spent his weekend trying to forget about Friday night. He told himself it was just another work task, even though he knew it was much more than that. He helped his mother with grocery shopping on Saturday and played basketball with his friends on Sunday. But his mind kept going back to those hours he spent with Richard Harrison, fixing the computer problem that could have cost the company millions. On Monday morning, Marcus arrived at work at his usual time, 7:30. He grabbed his coffee and checked his email for the day's support tickets. There were the normal problems. Someone's printer was not working, another person forgot their password, and a few computers needed software updates. Marcus was fixing a laptop in the accounting department when his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was his supervisor, Tony Martinez. "Marcus, I need you to report to the executive conference room on the 15th floor right away," Tony said. His voice sounded strange, like he was confused or worried. "Did I do something wrong?" Marcus asked. "I can finish this laptop first." "No, leave it. They want you up there now," Tony replied. "And Marcus, they specifically asked for you by name." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Being called to the executive floor was never good news for someone at his level. Maybe Richard Harrison had changed his mind about Friday night. Maybe Marcus had done something wrong with the computer system. Maybe he was in trouble for accessing executive files without proper permission. He took the elevator to the 15th floor, his hands sweating as he held his ID badge. The same expensive paintings and thick carpets were there, but now they felt intimidating instead of impressive. Marcus had never been to the main conference room before. When the elevator doors opened, he saw a secretary waiting for him. "Mr. Johnson, please follow me," she said with a professional smile. They walked down a long hallway to large wooden doors. The secretary knocked twice and opened them. Marcus stepped inside and immediately felt overwhelmed. The conference room was huge, with a long table surrounded by leather chairs. Large windows showed a view of the entire city. Sitting around the table were 12 people in expensive suits. Marcus recognized some of them from company newsletters and annual reports. These were the board members, the most powerful people in the company. At the head of the table sat Richard Harrison, looking much more relaxed than he had on Friday night. "Marcus, please come in and sit down," Richard said, pointing to an empty chair near him. Marcus walked slowly to the chair, feeling like everyone was watching him. He had never been in a room with so many important people before. Some of them looked curious. Others seemed annoyed that their meeting had been interrupted. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard began, "I want you to meet Marcus Johnson. Marcus works in our IT support department, and this weekend he saved our company from a potential disaster. Marcus felt his face getting hot. He was not used to being the center of attention, especially not with people this important. Richard continued his story, explaining how Marcus had stayed all night to recover the lost files and fix the security problem. Without Marcus's dedication and skill, we would not have been able to complete the Morrison merger this morning. That deal is worth $15 million to this company. One of the board members, an older woman with short gray hair, leaned forward. That's very impressive, but why are we hearing about this now? Richard smiled. Because I want to offer Marcus a position in our executive training program. The room went completely silent. Marcus felt like he could not breathe. Executive training program? That was for people with business degrees from expensive universities. That was for people who wore suits to work every day and knew how to talk about stocks and investments. Richard, that's very generous, said a man with a thick mustache. But the executive program is designed for candidates with specific qualifications. We have standards and procedures. I understand your concerns, William, Richard replied, but I believe talent and character are more important than a piece of paper from a college. Marcus proved both of those qualities this weekend. Another board member spoke up. What about his educational background? Does he have any business experience? Marcus finally found his voice. I have an associate degree in computer science from community college, he said quietly. I've been working here for 2 years, but only in technical support. Some board members exchanged looks that Marcus could not read. He felt like he was not good enough to be in this room, let alone join some special training program. Richard stood up and walked behind Marcus's chair. I started this company 25 years ago with nothing but determination and a willingness to work hard. I didn't have a fancy degree or rich parents. What I had was the desire to succeed and people who believed in me. He put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. I see those same qualities in Marcus. He didn't just fix my computer and go home. He stayed until the job was completely finished. He found problems I didn't even know existed and solved them without being asked. That's the kind of person I want representing this company. The older woman with gray hair asked, Marcus, what do you think about this opportunity? Marcus took a deep breath. I'm honored that Mr. Harrison would consider me, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for something like this. I don't know much about business or finance. But you're willing to learn? Richard asked. Yes, sir. I've always been willing to learn new things. Richard turned back to the board. The executive training program lasts 18 months. Marcus would rotate through different departments, learning how each part of our business works. He would attend seminars, work on real projects, and be mentored by senior managers. William, the man with the mustache, still looked doubtful. And after 18 months, if Marcus completes the program successfully, he would be promoted to a management position with full benefits and a significant salary increase. Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. This morning he was fixing broken computers, and now people were talking about making him a manager. It felt like something that happened to other people, not to someone like him. The board spent 20 minutes discussing the proposal. Marcus sat quietly, listening to them debate whether he deserved this chance. Some members supported Richard's decision, while others worried about setting a dangerous precedent. Finally, Richard called for a vote. All in favor of offering Marcus Johnson a position in our executive training program? 7 hands went up. 5 hands stayed down. The motion passes, Richard announced with a big smile. Congratulations, Marcus, your new life starts today. Marcus stood up slowly, still not believing this was really happening. 6 months ago, he was worried about paying his rent. Now he was being offered a chance to become a business executive. As the board members filed out of the room, Richard shook Marcus's hand firmly. Don't let them intimidate you, Richard said quietly. You earned this opportunity. Now it's up to you to make the most of it. Marcus walked back to the elevator in a daze, knowing that everything had just changed, forever. Marcus's first day in the executive training program started at 8 in the morning. He wore his best suit, which he had bought at a discount store 2 years ago for his cousin's wedding. As he walked through the executive floor, he noticed how different everything felt now that he belonged here. His new office was small but had a window and a real wooden desk. It was 10 times better than the cubicle he used to share with 3 other IT workers. On his desk was a thick folder labeled Executive Training Program, Marcus Johnson, and a schedule showing where he would spend the next 18 months. The first rotation was in the finance department, where he would learn about budgets, investments, and financial planning. Marcus opened the folder and saw pages of information about accounting principles, market analysis, and corporate finance. Most of the words were new to him. "Feeling overwhelmed yet?" a voice said from his doorway. Marcus looked up to see a woman in her early 30s wearing an expensive business suit. She had blonde hair pulled back in a perfect style and carried herself with confidence. "I'm Karen White," she said, walking into his office without being invited. "I'm the Assistant Director of Business Development. I heard about your unusual promotion." "Nice to meet you," Marcus replied, standing up to shake her hand. Karen looked around his office with a smile that did not seem friendly. "You know, I've been working here for 6 years. I have an MBA from Northwestern University and 3 years of experience at Goldman Sachs before I came here. I'm still waiting for my shot at the executive program." Marcus did not know what to say. He could tell that Karen was not happy about his promotion. "I'm sure you're very qualified," Marcus said carefully. "Oh, I am," Karen replied. "But apparently fixing computers is more impressive than years of financial training and proven results. Interesting how things work around here." After Karen left, Marcus felt worse about his situation. Maybe she was right. Maybe he did not deserve to be here. Maybe Richard Harrison had made a mistake. His first week in the finance department was difficult. The manager, Robert Chen, assigned him to work with a team analyzing quarterly reports. Marcus struggled to understand basic financial terms and felt lost during most meetings. The other team members were patient but clearly frustrated when they had to explain simple concepts to him. During lunch breaks, Marcus often ate alone while other trainees sat together discussing business school experiences he had never had. He heard them talking about internships at famous companies, study abroad programs, and networking events with important people. One afternoon, Marcus was reviewing budget reports when he noticed something strange. The numbers for office supplies seemed too high for a company their size. He spent the rest of the day comparing similar companies and found that Harrison Financial was spending 3 times more than normal on basic supplies like paper, pens, and printer cartridges. Marcus created a simple spreadsheet showing the differences and took it to Robert Chen. "This is interesting," Robert said, studying Marcus's analysis. "Have you shown this to anyone else?" "No, sir. I just finished it." Robert looked impressed. "You found a real problem here, Marcus. We've been overpaying for supplies for months and nobody caught it. This could save the company $50,000 a year." For the first time since starting the program, Marcus felt like he had contributed something valuable. His IT background had taught him to look for patterns and inefficiencies, skills that worked well in business analysis. Word about Marcus's discovery spread quickly through the company. Richard Harrison called him personally to congratulate him on finding the problem. Some coworkers began treating him with more respect, but others seemed even more resentful. Karen White was one of the people who seemed annoyed by Marcus's success. During a team meeting the following week, she questioned his methods and suggested that his analysis was too simple for complex business decisions. "Anyone can point out obvious problems," she said in front of the whole group. "Real business strategy requires understanding market forces, competitive positioning, and long-term financial planning. Things you learn in business school, not IT training." Marcus felt his face burn with embarrassment, but he did not respond. He was learning that corporate politics could be just as challenging as technical problems. His next rotation was in the marketing department, where he worked on customer analysis and advertising campaigns. Marcus discovered that his ability to understand data and find patterns was very useful here too. He identified which types of customers were most profitable and suggested ways to improve the company's website to attract more business. The marketing director, Linda Stevens, was impressed with Marcus's fresh perspective. "You look at problems differently than most people," she told him. You don't get stuck thinking about how things have always been done. But as Marcus became more successful, he started noticing other strange things around the company. Computer. Systems sometimes ran slowly for no clear reason. Some financial reports had small errors that did not make sense. Employee accounts showed unusual activity that reminded him of the security problems he had found on Richard Harrison's computer. Marcus began investigating these issues during his free time, using his IT skills to trace digital footprints and analyze system logs. What he found worried him. Someone was accessing company systems inappropriately, moving small amounts of money between accounts, and covering their tracks carefully. The amounts were not huge, a few $100s here, 1,000 there, but over time it added up to significant theft. More importantly, the techniques being used were sophisticated enough to avoid normal security measures. Marcus spent several nights creating detailed reports showing the suspicious activity. He traced the digital evidence back to specific computer, terminals, and user accounts. The pattern was clear. Someone with high-level access was stealing from the company systematically. When he finally had enough proof, Marcus requested a private meeting with Richard Harrison. They met after normal business hours in Richard's office, just like they had months earlier when this all started. "I've found something serious," Marcus began, showing Richard his analysis. "Someone has been taking money from company accounts for at least 6 months. Richard studied the reports carefully. His face became grave as he understood what Marcus had discovered. "How much money are we talking about?" Richard asked. "At least $70,000 so far, but probably more. The person doing this is very good at hiding their tracks." Richard leaned back in his chair. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. I've suspected internal theft for several months, but I couldn't prove it. The missing files that brought us together, that was partly a test." Marcus felt confused. "A test?" "I needed to find someone I could completely trust. Someone with the technical skills to investigate this properly and the integrity not to be part of the problem." Richard looked directly at Marcus. "You've proven both." As Marcus left Richard's office that night, he realized his role in the company was about to change again. He was no longer just a trainee learning business skills. He was now a key player in uncovering a serious crime that could destroy everything Richard Harrison had built. The next morning, Marcus arrived at work early to find Richard Harrison waiting in his office. The CEO looked tired, as if he had not slept well. On Marcus's desk were several thick folders and a laptop computer that Marcus had never seen before. "We need to talk," Richard said, closing the office door behind him. "What I'm about to tell you must stay completely secret until we decide how to handle it." Marcus nodded, feeling nervous about what was coming next. Richard sat down across from Marcus's desk. 6 months ago, I started noticing small problems with our financial reports. Nothing major, just tiny errors that seemed random. But when you add them up over time, they pointed to systematic theft. "So the missing files on your computer," Marcus began, "were partly real and partly planned," Richard finished. "I suspected someone on my executive team was involved, but I needed help from someone I could trust completely. Someone who was not part of the inner circle and had no reason to protect the thief." Marcus felt overwhelmed. "You've been testing me this whole time?" "Not testing your skills," Richard clarified. "I already knew you were talented. I was testing your character. Would you work hard even when no one was watching? Would you be honest when you found problems? Would you come to me when you discovered something serious?" Richard opened one of the folders and showed Marcus bank statements, computer logs, and financial reports. "Your investigation was perfect. You found exactly what I hoped you would find, and you handled it exactly the right way." Marcus studied the documents. His analysis had been correct, but there was much more evidence than he had uncovered on his own. "How long have you known who was stealing the money?" "I've had suspicions for 2 months," Richard replied. "But suspicions are not proof. We needed solid evidence that would hold up in court and with the board of directors." Richard opened the laptop and showed Marcus security camera footage from different parts of the building. The videos showed someone working late at night, accessing computers that were not their own, and transferring files to external storage devices. The person in the videos was Karen White, Marcus felt his stomach drop. He had suspected Karen did not like him, but he never imagined she was stealing from the company. How much money has she taken? Nearly $200,000 over 8 months, Richard said. She's been very clever about it, taking small amounts from different accounts and using her position to authorize fake expenses. The evidence was overwhelming. Karen had been creating false invoices for supplies that were never delivered, approving payments to fake vendors, and even charging personal expenses to company credit cards. She had covered her tracks by manipulating computer records and financial reports. What do we do now? Marcus asked. Richard leaned forward. That depends on you. I could call the police right now and have Karen arrested, but if we do that, the news will spread quickly. The board, our investors, and our competitors will all know that we had internal theft. That could damage the company's reputation and cost us future business. Marcus understood the problem. But if we don't report it, she might keep stealing. Exactly, Richard said. This is where your judgment becomes crucial. How do we handle this situation in a way that protects the company while making sure justice is served? Marcus spent the rest of the day thinking about the problem. He could not concentrate on his regular training activities because his mind kept going back to the difficult choice they faced. Karen White had been stealing from the company, but she was also a person with a career and a reputation. If they exposed her publicly, it would destroy her professional life forever. That evening, Marcus stayed late to review all the evidence one more time. He wanted to make sure they had not missed anything important. As he was looking through the security footage, he noticed something that Richard had not mentioned. Karen was not working alone. In several videos, Marcus could see Karen meeting with someone else after normal business hours. The person was always careful to stay away from the cameras, but Marcus could tell it was a man in an expensive suit. By comparing the timing of these meetings with the theft activity, Marcus realized that someone else was helping Karen plan and execute the crimes. The next morning, Marcus showed his discovery to Richard. The CEO's face went pale as he watched the footage. I was afraid of this, Richard said quietly. If Karen has an accomplice, especially someone else in management, the damage could be much worse than we thought. They spent the next week conducting a secret investigation. Marcus used his IT skills to trace computer activity and financial transactions, while Richard carefully reviewed personnel records and security footage. What they found was shocking. Karen's accomplice was William Brooks, one of the board members, who had voted against Marcus's promotion. William had been using his position to approve fake contracts and authorize suspicious payments. Together, he and Karen had stolen over $400,000 from the company. Now I understand why William was so opposed to bringing you into the executive program, Richard said. You represented a threat to their operation, someone with IT skills who might notice their digital footprints. Marcus realized that Karen's hostility toward him had not just been about jealousy. She had been worried that he might discover what she was doing. Her comments about his qualifications were designed to undermine his credibility in case he found evidence of the theft. The situation was now much more serious. William Brooks was not just an employee. He was a board member with significant influence over the company's decisions. Exposing him would create a major scandal and possibly damage the company's relationships with investors and business partners. Richard arranged a meeting with the company's lawyers and external auditors. They needed professional advice on how to handle such a complex situation. The lawyers recommended building an absolutely perfect case before taking any action. For the next 2 weeks, Marcus worked closely with the auditors to document every detail of the theft. They traced money transfers, analyzed computer logs, and interviewed employees who might have witnessed suspicious behavior. The evidence they collected was overwhelming and undeniable. During this time, Karen and William had no idea they were being investigated. They continued their normal work routines while secretly planning their next theft. Marcus had to act normally around both of them, pretending he knew nothing about their crimes. The hardest part was watching Karen interact with other employees, knowing that she was stealing money that could have been used for raises, bonuses, or better benefits. She acted friendly and professional while secretly betraying everyone who worked at the company. Finally, Richard decided it was time to act. They had enough evidence to prove the theft in court, and waiting longer would only allow Karen and William to steal more money. Tomorrow morning we present our findings to the full board of directors, Richard told Marcus. After that, we call the police and let the legal system handle the rest. Marcus felt nervous, but also proud. He had helped uncover a serious crime and protect the company that had given him such an important opportunity. Tomorrow would test everything he had learned about business, ethics, and leadership. The emergency board meeting was scheduled for 8 in the morning. Marcus arrived at the office early, carrying copies of all the evidence they had collected. His hands were shaking slightly as he organized the documents, computer files, and security footage that would prove Karen White and William Brooks had been stealing from the company. Richard Harrison met Marcus in the conference room 30 minutes before the other board members arrived. "Are you ready for this?" Richard asked, placing a supportive hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I think so," Marcus replied. "I've never presented to the board before except when you offered me the training program." "Today is different," Richard said. "Today you're not asking for anything. You're giving them information they need to protect this company. Remember, you're the expert on what you discovered. Trust yourself." One by one, the board members filed into the conference room. Marcus watched William Brooks enter with his usual confident smile, completely unaware that his criminal activities were about to be exposed. Karen White was not a board member, but Richard had requested that she attend this special meeting. When everyone was seated, Richard stood up. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. We have a serious matter to discuss that affects the security and reputation of our company." He gestured toward Marcus. "Over the past few months, Marcus Johnson has been investigating suspicious financial activity in our systems. What he found is disturbing and requires immediate action." Marcus stood up, feeling nervous but determined. He had practiced his presentation several times, but speaking to these powerful people still felt intimidating. He took a deep breath and began. "6 weeks ago, I noticed unusual patterns in our computer systems and financial records," Marcus said. "Small amounts of money were being moved between accounts in ways that didn't make sense. After investigation, I found evidence of systematic theft." He turned on the large screen and showed the first slide of his presentation. It was a timeline, showing when the thefts had occurred and how much money was taken each time. "Over the past 8 months, someone has stolen more than $400,000 from Harrison Financial Group," Marcus continued. "They used fake invoices, unauthorized credit card charges, and false expense reports to take money from different company accounts." Several board members gasped. The woman with gray hair who had questioned Marcus's qualifications months ago leaned forward with concern. "Do we know who did this?" Marcus clicked to the next slide, which showed computer logs and security footage. "Yes, the evidence points to 2 people working together." Karen White's face went pale. She looked around the room nervously, as if she was thinking about leaving. Marcus showed the security footage of Karen working late at night, accessing computers that were not hers, and transferring files to external devices. Then he showed financial records proving that she had approved fake payments and created false invoices. "The evidence clearly shows that Karen White has been stealing money from the company," Marcus said. "But she was not working alone." William Brooks had been sitting quietly, but now he spoke up. "This is a very serious accusation, Marcus. I hope you have solid proof before you destroy someone's career." Marcus looked directly at William. "I do have solid proof, including evidence that Karen had help from someone with high-level access to approve fake contracts and authorize suspicious payments." He clicked to the next slide, which showed William in the security footage meeting with Karen after hours. Financial records proved that William had approved fake contracts worth over $100,000. The room went completely silent. William's confident expression disappeared, replaced by panic and anger. "This is ridiculous," William said, standing up quickly. "I've been on this board for 10 years. I've never stolen anything from this company." Marcus remained calm. "The evidence speaks for itself, Mr. Brooks. Computer logs show that you accessed the system from your office to approve payments that were later discovered to be fraudulent. Security cameras recorded you meeting with Karen White during times that matched suspicious financial activity. Richard stepped forward. We have already contacted the police and the FBI. They will be here within the hour to make arrests. We also have forensic accountants examining all company records to determine the full extent of the theft. Karen White finally spoke, her voice shaking. This is all a mistake. I was just trying to help the company save money by finding better deals with suppliers. Marcus showed another slide with bank records. These documents show that the money from fake invoices was transferred to personal accounts belonging to you and Mr. Brooks. That's not helping the company save money. That's theft. The evidence was overwhelming. Karen and William could not explain away the computer logs, security footage, bank records, and financial documents that proved their crimes. The other board members were shocked and angry. They had trusted William for years, and Karen had been considered a rising star in the company. The theft was not just about money, it was a betrayal of everyone who worked at Harrison Financial Group. Within an hour, police officers arrived and arrested both Karen White and William Brooks. As they were led away in handcuffs, Marcus felt sad rather than victorious. Two people had destroyed their careers and hurt many others because of greed. After the arrests, Richard called another board meeting to discuss the company's future. The remaining board members unanimously voted to implement new security measures and financial controls to prevent similar thefts in the future. More importantly, they voted to make Marcus the new vice president of operations, responsible for overseeing all company systems and ensuring the integrity of financial processes. Marcus has proven that he has the skills, integrity, and judgment we need in our leadership, said the gray-haired woman who had once questioned his qualifications. He saved this company from serious damage. 6 months later, Marcus sat in his new corner office looking out at the city skyline. He had completed the executive training program with outstanding performance and was now one of the youngest vice presidents in the company's history. His mother had cried with pride when he told her about his promotion. His sister was now attending college, helped by the scholarship program that Marcus had created for children of company employees. Richard Harrison had announced his retirement plans, with Marcus being prepared to eventually take over as CEO. The board fully supported this succession plan after seeing how Marcus had handled the theft investigation and his subsequent leadership responsibilities. One evening, as Marcus was leaving the office, he noticed a young woman working late at her computer in the accounting department. She looked worried and was staring at financial reports with confusion. Marcus walked over to her desk. "Is everything okay? Do you need help with something?" The woman looked up, surprised that a vice president was talking to her. "I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson. I think I found an error in these monthly reports, but I'm not sure if I should mention it to anyone." Marcus smiled, remembering his own nervous feelings when he had first discovered problems in the company's systems. "What's your name?" "Lisa Chen," she replied. "I just started working here last month." "Well, Lisa, I think we should take a look at what you found. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from people who are willing to pay attention to details." As Marcus sat down to help Lisa examine the reports, he thought about how much his life had changed. He had learned that success came not from where you started, but from how hard you were willing to work, and how much integrity you brought to everything you did. The scared young man who had fixed computers in the middle of the night was now a confident leader, ready to guide Harrison Financial Group into its next chapter. And just like Richard Harrison had done for him, Marcus was always looking for the next person who deserved a chance to prove themselves.